area that they have for inmates there. I remember Paul Venema doing a story on exactly the cells that they have there for this sort of thing.
And emotion really a central point in this case, both, of course, for the defense and the prosecution. We heard in some of the videotaped interrogations of Otis McCain, he was talking about how he wanted police officers to feel the pain that he felt all over what he said was a custody issue, not being allowed to see his own child, and that leading up to the shooting death of SAPD Detective Benjamin Marconi. We have not heard or seen at this point from the family of Marconi, his friends, his relatives. You know, they were there when that verdict was read. I imagine they are now gathering outside the courtroom, potentially with any other representatives of the prosecution's case.
What I'm curious about with the outburst that we just saw from McCain, where he threw the elbow and went after the bailiff as he was trying to be escorted from the courtroom, and our Erica Hernandez is there, photojournalist Sal Salazar is there. I'm guessing the jury was not in the courtroom when that happened. I'm guessing the jury left and then they escorted him out. But I really think if you're the defense right now, you're hoping the jury didn't see what just happened.
Because, of course, as you heard, the judge there at the top of this coverage here said they will be back tomorrow to begin this penalty phase and deciding the punishment for Otis McCain. So, Steve, yes, to your point, I would imagine that would leave an impact if the jury did see that, and they know they're going to be back in less than a day to decide what now happens to Otis McCain.
It's the top of the hour, and this is normally when we start our 6 o'clock news. But if you were watching the breaking news that we had, Otis McCain found guilty of capital murder in the case of the killing of San Antonio Police Detective Benjamin Marconi. Our Erica Hernandez has been covering this all day. Erica, we were just commenting on how we have not seen any emotion really from McCain, except for that one time when he was watching his interrogation and he was talking about his son. We saw him tear up then. We saw it just a little bit after this verdict, and certainly as he was being escorted from the courtroom. What is it like right now at the courthouse?
It was very chaotic the last few minutes. Now, we kind of noticed one of our photographers, Sal, who was inside shooting this live, on him unbuttoning his shirt after the jury was escorting out, almost getting ready to, and then moments later, he elbowed one of the bailiffs. All the bailiffs then went after him. There was about 5 of them in the courtroom at the time. They all rushed to the doorway where he's ushered in and out. And I heard one of them yell taser, so I'm not sure if they tased him or not because you couldn't see from the vantage point that we were in. But yeah, this is the first time we've seen any kind of reaction other than that day you mentioned, Steve, of him crying after seeing and hearing himself talk about not being able to see his son. So yes, there is a lot of emotion. There's a lot of chaotic moments going on right now. I walked out as soon as that incident happened to go live with you guys, so I'm not exactly sure what we're seeing right now inside the courtroom, if there's still anything going on.
It is calm inside the courtroom, Erica, just to let you know. They shut the door where they have the holding cells there, so that made me think, okay, they have him under control, they have him in a cell, and both the defense and the prosecution are talking to Judge Ron Hell right now.
But almost, Erica, as you mentioned, I don't believe that we could tell from the view we were seeing, perhaps some of the defense team standing in the way there, him unbuttoning his shirt, as it sounds like the jury was being escorted out, so perhaps they didn't all see what we just saw, but it looks like it could, be interpreted as him loosening up to get ready to take some action here. How about the family of the detective or relatives? Have you seen any reaction from them up to this point?
Well, when the verdict was read, you could kind of hear a sigh of relief from them that it was a guilty verdict for the capital murder. Now, the jury was in there for about 25 minutes of deliberations. We just were up at 5 when they were just on there. And literally, as I walked off the 5, I had a text message that we have a verdict. So it was all very quick. This all happened really suddenly. The family was just getting up to walk out of the courtroom when McCain lunged at one of the bailiffs. As we can say, we don't know exactly. We think he elbowed him, but he was unbuttoning his shirt and taking it out of his pants as he was getting ready. Now, he wasn't handcuffed at the time. I think his legs were shackled, but not his hands. So he was able to at least get one good elbow into one of the bailiffs.
Yeah, I think that's what we were seeing, is they were reaching down to handcuff him before they took him out of the courtroom. Let's show that video again that we have from just moments ago. This is Otis McCain after, I believe, the jury has left and he's getting ready. There you see the elbow he throws at that bailiff, and a bailiff behind him just tackles him to the ground. And then you see a number of security. There you saw it again. It looked as if he did connect with that bailiff. And you saw Erica talking about him untucking his pants, unbuttoning his shirt. It certainly seems as if this was something that he was premeditated in doing. And you can see the number of police, Bexar County detention officers that were there, and deputies doing a swift job of taking Otis McCain down. Were you surprised at all, I mean, in how short this deliberation was, Erica?
You know, Steve, not at all, because we saw the evidence that the state presented within 2 weeks. There was 55 witnesses they put on the stand. There was a video confession. There was video of his vehicle that was, pointed out by the rent-a-tire people who sold it to him. Like, it was. There was just so much mounting evidence against him. It was a case the defense had a hard time defending, only bringing up one witness this morning, which was Detective Mark Duke, who was the lead investigator on this case, to try to prove that Benjamin Marconi was on his phone and using personal text messages. And it wasn't so much that they were trying to get a not guilty verdict. It was trying to get that capital murder reduced to just a murder charge, Steve.
We're going to take some more. We're going to go back to the live stream as we continue talking here, Erica, and kind of show you what is happening there, because I understand some of those bailiffs have re-entered the courtroom as the conference continues between the judge and some of those. There's the bailiff.
This looks like the bailiff who was elbowed as McCain was standing up from the defense table. You wonder if they're looking at any video of what just happened, or going over any sort of protocol that they have to when something like this takes place in the courtroom. Of course, good to see that he looks like he's doing fine. He's standing up, talking to his colleagues there in the courtroom. But this something, Steve, you asked earlier about whether the jury saw this. So, Erica, it sounds like they didn't witness what happened here.
No, had already been out. The judge had already gave him instructions on what tomorrow was going to be, which is starting the punishment phase at 1:30. He thanked them for their time. They were walking out. I don't know if they were all completely out the door yet when this happened, this incident happened. Everybody was standing at the time, so it was hard to see from my vantage point. But yes, the majority of the jury was at least out the door when this incident happened, Myra.
I'm glad to see that bailiff seems to be doing well, that sheriff's deputy seems to be doing well. You saw maybe a red mark on kind of the right side of his face. That is the most that I could see that there was any indication. Obviously, he worked up some perspiration because of the struggle that ensued after that. You
can see him rubbing his face there. He's composed at this point, but certainly I imagine that had to be a difficult incident, and one that he almost seems to be shaking his head there, kind of in disbelief that this happened. And so what comes next, Erica? We know that in the courtroom at this moment, we're looking at that bailiff who took the elbow to the face from Otis McCain, as we now have seen several times on video. It looks like there are still some spectators. They're watching the proceedings. So what are the next steps that are playing out right now?
So there's probably just discussion on what tomorrow is going to look like. If punishment phase begins at 1:30, I guarantee that McCain will not be coming out without handcuffs tomorrow. I'm sure he will be shackled if he's going to be there sitting at that table on the defense side as we begin the punishment phase. Again, that starts at 1:30 tomorrow afternoon. We will have it live on KSAT.com, where you can stream it, as well as we'll have all the latest on 5 and 6 tomorrow afternoon.
So again, Otis McCain being found guilty unanimously by the jury in just 25 minutes of deliberation. This is a capital murder trial for the shooting death of SAPD Detective Benjamin Marconi. That punishment phase begins tomorrow. The jury could decide on the death penalty because it is a capital murder case.
Yeah, and as he was being escorted from the courtroom, throwing an elbow at one of the bailiffs, one of the Bexar County Sheriff's deputies that were trying to escort him, put on the handcuffs and escort him. As Erica said, he has shackles on his legs. He is not handcuffed. That's normal with the defendants in these type of cases. They were putting the handcuffs on, taking him to a holding cell, and then he struck out at one of the deputies there. That deputy seems to be fine, and we are assuming that Otis McCain is in a cell. It looked like they train for these things, and it certainly looked like the deputies and bailiffs in that courtroom did not hesitate to jump in and take control of the situation.
It was immediate response. We have now seen the video several times. I know that we'll be sharing that on our website as well as our later newscasts at KSAT.com, so you can see for yourself just how this came to such an emotional and abrupt and unexpected end after that jury read the guilty verdict against Otis McCain.
We still have a crew there. There you see, there's the video again of McCain with the right elbow to the face of the bailiff, and then you see a number of deputies and bailiffs run in and take control of the situation. Erica Hernandez talking about the fact he unbuttoned his shirt, untucked it right before this happened, and you can see some of his attorneys sitting at that same table, I'm sure in disbelief about what they're watching.
And of course, I imagine we're going to hear more about this specific moment in the courtroom, as well as what happens tomorrow when that penalty phase of this trial begins. Again, a guilty verdict against Otis McCain. Our Erica Hernandez will continue to cover it.
Let's move on right now. Northeast ISD changing its tune this week on whether the district was going to notify parents about positive cases on COVID-19 at schools. Last week, school officials said that wasn't going to happen. This evening, the district changed its position, saying it would let parents know about positive cases after getting feedback from parents. So the policy for the upcoming school year will be to notify parents if there is a positive case at their child's school.
Coronavirus vaccine mandates are coming for state workers in California, city workers in New York City. So could something similar be coming to San Antonio and Bexar County? Mayor Ron Nierenberg and County Judge Nelson Wolff releasing a joint statement on that idea, saying, quote, "We are supportive of the efforts of New York and California. We will be reviewing the legalities and practicalities of requiring a COVID-19 vaccine and or weekly testing in conformity with CDC guidelines in order to protect the health and well-being of the city-county workforce."
Let's quickly turn to weather and the fact that it is warm, but maybe not as warm as it usually is in July, Adam.
That's the key. Temperatures have been below average most of the month. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Right now, we're sitting at 92 degrees officially at the airport. Dew point is 69, so it feels like we're up to 97. But this isn't far from just normal July weather. 94 Los Maples, 97 now in Helotes, Bulverde 91 along with Seguin. And as we go through the evening, minimal breeze, clear sky, pretty quiet, still near 80 degrees at midnight. A chance of rain, a slight chance, right around the corner. We'll talk about that and where the heat high is currently located coming up.
Let's take a look outside with Sky 12 this evening, flying high above downtown. 93 degrees right now, plenty of sunshine, and really no rain to speak of.
Well, not yet.
Not yet.
It's been odd to just not have a shot at rain for just 3 days in a row, not even a slight chance. We are going to see a small chance of rain come back into the picture here momentarily, but it's a slight chance and very brief period of time as well. Overall, let's talk temperatures. 94 was our high today, and that's 2 degrees below average for this time of year. The record high 106 set back in 1954. And you look elsewhere, Del Rio made it up to 102, Cotulla triple digits as well, but Hondo 93, Fredericksburg a high of 94. So we'll start with temperatures and then we'll get into our rain chances. You look at the month of July and we're about 2.8 degrees below average for the overall temperature. And just at the beginning of the month, did we have a day, one day that was above average, and that was Saturday, July 3rd. When we made it up to 95, so just barely above the average at that point. You look at readings now. Del Rio still at 102, 96 Uvalde, 93 Gonzales. We're well into the 90s. That's common for this time of year. We have yet to hit triple digits here in San Antonio, and I think we'll get a little closer toward the end of the forecast period here by early next week, but not quite there. This is what's interesting. You look at the readings that are rivaling us right now. Even Casper, Wyoming at 97. That's 5 degrees warmer than us. Salt Lake is over triple digits. Bismarck, North Dakota is above the century mark right now. even into Nebraska, low 90s, warmer than us. The core of the upper level high, the heat dome, is right now over there, that area, the Northern Rockies. So it's just off to the northwest of us. We're on the outskirts of it, but our door is open for little disturbances to be coming in from the east, and that's what's going to give us that slight chance of rain over the next couple of days. Temperatures, they're going to stay a little below the average high for pretty much the rest of this week. By Friday, 96, that's the average high temperature, and into next week, a little bit closer to the upper 90s, but again, triple digits not really in our forecast quite yet. And keep in mind, there are about 24 years where we'd never hit 100 degrees here in San Antonio, so it's not completely unheard of to not even hit 100. You look over the Gulf of Mexico, we have this little swirl here, kicking up some showers and thunderstorms, and without the upper level high planted right overhead, this could drift toward us. However, it looks like it's going to stay mainly south of us and bring most of its energy to parts of the coastline here in Mexico, just south of Texas. However, a few other ripples in the upper level flow will be moving our way, and they could be just enough to kickstart a few showers. So tomorrow, a very slight chance at 10%. Then we get into Wednesday, and a little slightly better kick of energy will probably generate a few showers and thunderstorms here and there. I wouldn't even call them scattered in nature, just very isolated, so fewer in quantity and the number of them. Tomorrow we'll start the day at 75, and then by the afternoon, just like today, about 94. There's that 10% chance. Completely isolated off chance tomorrow. Southeasterly breeze, not very strong, only 3 to 8 miles per hour. Get into Wednesday, up to 20%, so still pretty isolated in nature. And we may tweak that upward just a little bit later tonight and into tomorrow morning. And then you look at a lot of sunshine. Very familiar July pattern, sunny Thursday through the weekend, even into next week. And by Monday, we're thinking up to 98 degrees. So Myra, you've been asking. And
yeah,
a little closer, but not yet there. And I know it's a number, right? What's the difference between 99 and 100? You don't feel it, but it's a psychological thing.
Oh, but I'm still going to ask. No triple digits yet. Thanks, Adam.
All right, let's go now to California. Greg Simmons joins us beachside after a conversation with Jerry Jones last night, Greg.
Yeah, and we're a little disappointed because the sun hasn't been out. The marine layer has come in. It's kind of stayed most of the day. But, we'll take a day at the beach any day. When we come back, you're right. We did talk to Jerry Jones. We did talk to him about the long-term effects of that injury on his star quarterback, Dak Prescott. When we come back, you'll hear what he had to say. And players expressing frustration with Pop at the Olympics coming up.
I don't know. That job is pretty good over there with Fox.
That's Troy Aikman's reaction when asked if he would put his hat in the ring if owner Jerry Jones opened up the general manager position for the Dallas Cowboys. It's time to go camping with KSAT.
Camping with KSAT, powered by Davis Law Firm.
More from Troy in just a moment, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our live coverage of the Dallas Cowboys training camp in Oxnard, California. The players have a day off, so we decided to head to the beach here in Oxnard. Not a bad place to work from on a Monday. Cowboys owner Jerry Jones visited with us last night on Instant Replay. In fact, it's his first interview with us in 2 years after the COVID-19 pandemic shut down any hopes of training in Oxnard last year. One of the many questions we put to Jerry included the health of Dak Prescott and if there were any concerns about his long-term ability to perform given the severity of the injury, especially after Jones had rewarded Prescott with a 4-year, $160 million contract.
The two best practices that I've seen, that I've actually seen him have, Dak, have been the last two practices. When I was visiting with Troy, we were talking about Dak's improvement since he was first joined the Cowboys as a 4th-round draft pick. And it has been dramatic. And so that, in my mind, Dak is that kind of player that he could easily be better 10 years from now, be more productive, winning games, as opposed to right here. I see a long-term future with Dak Prescott.
Now, as Jerry had mentioned, 3-time Super Bowl champion Troy Aikman paid a visit to Cowboys camp over the weekend, spending most of his time in the training camp tower with Jerry Jones. Aikman would admit later the conversation was not just about football, but finances as well. But afterwards, the Hall of Famer was nice enough to answer some of our questions, including how he thought his former team would do this season.
I think they've got a chance to be really good. I mean, I really do. I hate for that to sound generic, but, offensively, I expect them to be as explosive as anybody in the game. And I know that last year's defense was not, that good, and there's some concerns there. Until they show it on the field, there's going to be those questions. But I believe that if the players that they have can play to the ability that we all know that they can play to, I think that they should have plenty of defense to complement an explosive offense and win a lot of games.
All right, that's good to hear. All right, there are rumblings coming, a lot of rumblings, in fact, coming out of Japan from players playing on the Team USA over the frustration with Greg Popovich as their head coach. Team USA was 12.5-point favorites in their loss to France, 83-76. First Olympic loss for Team USA since 2004. According to The Athletic, players were heard grumbling on the way to the locker room about having to run the San Antonio offense, apparently when they feel there are better ideas. Team USA, by the way, next faces Iran on Wednesday morning, 11:40 in the morning. Here's the latest medal count coming out of the Japan Tokyo Olympics. And as you can see, they have Japan first because they've won more gold medals, followed by the USA and then China. But China actually has more medals overall, even though they're showing right there in third place. Coming up tonight on the Night Beat, we'll visit with Cowboys offensive lineman Zach Martin, who himself was injured last year, among the handful, of course, of Cowboys offensive linemen who had to deal with injuries. Coming up tonight on the Night Beat. See you then, live from California. Not bad. Greg Simmons, KSAT 12 Sports.
I am jealous. Thank you, Greg.
I saw at 5 his toes were in the sand.
Yeah, I really felt sorry for him with the it's overcast.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg. Yeah.
We'll be right back. There is more conversation about the idea of mandated vaccines for certain companies and agencies. Kids are headed back to school in a few short weeks, and the Delta variant is surging. So to talk about all those things, what we need to know about this point in the pandemic, we have Charisse Rohr-Allegrini, a local epidemiologist, joining us today for our KSAT Q&A. Charisse, great to see you. Always love having you on. And I want to start here. We keep reminding people about the importance of getting the vaccine, trying to get more people who have not done so to make that decision. So if where we are right now, we don't see a significant number of more people getting vaccinated, what do you think the future of this pandemic looks like?
I'm afraid it's not going to end anytime soon, and it's going to make it difficult for us returning to schools. We know that we're about 45% of the total population of San Antonio and Bexar County has been fully vaccinated. That leaves a lot of people not vaccinated, including those under 12 who can't get vaccinated, and that's the most of our school population. So it does have me very concerned. We all want to get back to normal, and we're not getting there.
Is that your biggest concern about the numbers that you're seeing, the fact that we just don't have herd immunity? We're not really close to herd immunity right now.
Exactly. We're seeing huge jumps in hospitalizations. We were down close to 100 hospitalized COVID patients per day for a while. Now we're at almost 300. So that's a huge problem. The hospitals are still in a situation where they can handle it. So I am concerned there. But my bigger concern is that we're not going to get to a point where we can function as normal as possible unless we have something closer to herd immunity, which is, it's not going to be perfect. We still don't have herd immunity for all the diseases for which we have vaccines, but we come pretty close to it. And that's what matters. So we really need to get folks who can get vaccinated.
We're hearing a lot more conversation, too, about this being a pandemic of the unvaccinated at this point. Can you talk about the impact that the Delta variant is having on people who have not gotten the shot?
Well, definitely we see that you have a higher viral load, which means there's more virus in you when you have the Delta variant and you're unvaccinated, which means you're more likely to transmit it to somebody else as well as get very sick. If you've been vaccinated and you do get infected with the Delta variant, you're less likely to transmit it. You're less likely to get very sick. That terminology, I don't like it that much to say it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, because we are seeing some cases in those who are vaccinated who are getting the virus from people who are unvaccinated because, again, they have higher viral loads. But then, remember that not everybody can get vaccinated. So we have kids under 12 and many immunocompromised folks who don't really have a choice to get vaccinated at this time.
You are a disease detective. That's what epidemiologists do. Talk about the people that are out there and they're saying, okay, there's 300 people in the hospital. That's way less than we saw at the height of the pandemic. What do you say to those people that, what do you say to those people who are skeptical that we're seeing another surge?
Well, we are seeing a surge. You can see it in the graphs. It's very obvious in our data that we see a surge. 300 people in the hospital is pretty significant. Now, I said I'm not too nervous just yet because I think the hospitals are in incredibly good shape to handle what they're dealing with, but the hospitals need a break too. They need to be able to deal with flu season that's going to come up in the fall. They need to be able to deal with all the regular cases of, the car accidents, the heart attacks, et cetera. And so we need to really get back. That's what has to get back to normal. The hospitals, absolutely, but also our schools. For the last year, even though some schools were in person, many students stayed home. And so we didn't have large populations of kids under 12, unvaccinated in the same space for many hours a day, which is what we're going to see in the fall. And so that actually is my biggest concern, because you have kids that are going to be transmitting it. And even if they don't get as sick, they're going to be giving it to other people.
And I think that that's such a question for people who are fully vaccinated, but they have children, they live with someone who is not able to get the vaccine, and of course heading back to school too. So, we're talking a lot about the Delta variant right now. We've heard about the Lambda variant being discovered at a hospital in Houston. Should we expect to keep hearing about different variants popping up as we're trying to get more people vaccinated, but that number seems to have plateaued for at least now?
Right. The virus mutates, and so you are going to see new variants. How much impact those variants have is really going to depend on how successful that mutation is for the virus. The Delta variant mutations are significant enough that they're really increasing the transmissibility of the virus. They're increasing the viral load, increasing the transmissibility, and that's why we've heard so much about the Delta variant. Some of the other variants have not been as sort of successful from the point of view of a virus. And also the vaccines have worked more effectively against those. But most of the transmission we're seeing is from unvaccinated to vaccinated people. If you're vaccinated, you can potentially get infected, you can potentially get sick, but you're less likely to get very sick and you're less likely to transmit it. So even though that vaccine isn't perfect, it's still doing a wonder in preventing the spread of the virus in this pandemic.
Is that frustrating to you? As I called you a disease detective, which is what you told me an epidemiologist does, so I like to use it as often as possible. But I mean, what the solution is, or at least something that can stop this, and it's not being used. Is that frustrating for you as a scientist?
It is extremely frustrating and unfortunately not new. We've dealt with this with every outbreak, every epidemic. We're still dealing with it with HIV, where we have the tools and we're not quite getting there. It's especially frustrating with COVID because it is disrupting our lives so much. I have an 11-year-old that I was planning on sending back to class in a few weeks. And now I'm getting a little bit nervous about it because he can't get vaccinated for another 5 months. And so that's a huge concern. And that's going to be a concern for a lot of families in our community. So the impact of this pandemic is so intense. It's not just the flu. And even the flu is pretty significant. So I don't like the comparisons to the flu because the flu is pretty bad as well. But it's not a mild disease and it's scary. And we're not going to get to a better place unless we get folks vaccinated. But that also means bringing vaccine to the people, making it easy for folks to get vaccinated, answering their concerns, convincing them of all the reasons why. And let me just add that I have heard from a number of folks who say because they have kids under 12 who can't get vaccinated, they don't want to get vaccinated because they don't feel it's fair. Quite the opposite is the truth, that by vaccinating yourselves, vaccinating everybody in the household that can get vaccinated, you're protecting those in your household who can't get vaccinated. And that's what's so essential in controlling this pandemic.
we have the tools. And as a reminder, like you were mentioning, bringing the vaccine to people, there have been so many pop-up clinics in all different parts of town. I know we have a list on our website right now at KSAT.com. So Charisse Rohr-Allegrini, local disease detective, also known as an epidemiologist. Thanks so much, as always, for sharing your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care. We'll be right back.
We want to go back and show you again an explosive moment right after the guilty verdict was read in the trial of Otis McCain. You can see there he stands up from the table, elbows a bailiff right in the face, and several other Bexar County officers then swarm him to get him under control and through that door.
This was shortly after the guilty verdict was read. The jury had just left the courtroom, and our Erica Hernandez, who was there, said you could see McCain put his head in his hands a couple times, lean back, unbuttoned his shirt, then he pulled it out of his pants, and the bailiff was coming over to handcuff him before leading him back to those cells, the holding cells that are behind that door there, and that's when McCain lashed out.
And this is after, again, that guilty verdict was read. He was found guilty of capital murder for shooting San Antonio Police Detective Benjamin Marconi while he sat in his patrol car in 2016. Our Erica Hernandez again was telling us that just before this happened, the jury announced their verdict. They were escorted out of the courtroom. They will be brought back in tomorrow to begin the punishment phase in this trial. Death penalty is on the table because this is a capital murder offense, but it appears the jury did not witness that moment that McCain elbowed that bailiff in the face.
Yeah, the punishment phase begins at 1:30 tomorrow afternoon, and as we have been doing throughout this entire trial, we will continue to live stream it on KSAT.com and the other ways that you can stream KSAT TV. Turn to weather right now, and let's talk about the possibility of rain, I guess.
Yeah, it's not as impressive as what we had in weeks past, but despite a more summer-like weather pattern that has taken shape over the past few days, we do have a slight chance of showers. Nothing this evening, clear sky out there, 0% chance. 92 degrees right now, will be 84 at 10 o'clock, midnight, right near 80 degrees. There will be a little uptick in temperatures in the 7-day forecast. We'll talk about that and that rain chance coming up.
Space travel has had the most buzz of just about anything you could think of lately, with a couple of billionaires shooting for the stars. But Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson not officially recognized as astronauts, at least by U.S. government standards. The Federal Aviation Administration recently changed its criteria to receive commercial astronaut wings. Before, travelers only had to fly to an altitude of at least 50 miles.
This is something I hadn't thought of. Now they have to do that and demonstrate activities during flight that were essential to public safety or contributed to human space flight safety. The FAA says the change aligns more directly with the agency's goals. Since the 1960s, it's been a rite of passage for astronauts to get wings after flying to space. There's still a chance that Branson, Bezos, and some of their crewmates could be formally recognized as astronauts. The agency could issue an honorary award, but that's up to the discretion of the FAA's Associate Administrator for Commercial Space Transportation.
All right. There may be a front runner for Word of the Year for 2021, shrinkflation. And if you've noticed less cereal in the box lately, maybe less cereal in the less ice cream in the container, you know what we're talking about. Companies are opting for smaller packaging to offset rising costs.
Shrinkflation is not new. It's been around for decades, but it typically becomes more common when companies' costs go up, like the inflation surge we're seeing. Customers notice when prices go up, but companies are banking on them being less likely to notice a smaller box on the shelf or a few sheets missing from that toilet paper roll.
That would be a tough one to detect.
Yes, yeah. Yes, it would. All right, let's go to Adam Caskey right now and talk about the slight rain chances that we have.
It's a slight one, but it's there nonetheless. We're in a more typical summertime pattern. We've had nothing but sunshine the past 3 days in a row. Temperatures, though, have remained a little below average. We're going to be making up some ground there in the days ahead. So this typical summer pattern is still going to bring us a slight chance of rain, and then temperatures just getting a little bit hotter in the extended forecast. Let's start with this. Let's talk about our weather pattern. Wall-to-wall sunshine today. Even most of the state's seen sunshine, but there's this little swirl in the Gulf of Mexico, and you can see that's been generating some showers and thunderstorms this afternoon. And a lot of this activity is outside the range of Doppler radars, so you don't see the greens and the yellows indicating the showers and storms here, but you can tell just by the visible satellite imagery that those are thunderstorms. There's a little upper level swirl that's helping to develop those today, and that upper level swirl is going to be drifting westward. I think the brunt of it is going to be a little too far removed from us to give us a good shot at rain, but with this easterly flow aloft, a few more ripples, I think, will move overhead. So tomorrow, mainly just another partly cloudy day. You'll notice a little extra clouds compared to what we had today. So a fairly straightforward day, only 10% chance of a shower. Then we get into Wednesday afternoon, and another little ripple in the flow could kickstart a few showers and thunderstorms here and there across our area, central, down to South Texas, East Texas as well, and along the Gulf Coast by Wednesday. So a slightly higher chance Wednesday. Nonetheless, we're only giving it about a 20, maybe 30%. So very limited coverage in what's likely to pop up the next couple of days. So not much is likely to pop up. And then it's back to 0% Thursday through the weekend and into next week. So let's talk about temperatures now. Started the day at 76, topped out at 94. 94, 2 degrees below the average high of 96. Record 106, by the way. Right now we're at 92. Feels like it's 5 degrees warmer when you factor in the mugginess outside and that humidity. So the dew point's at 69 degrees. Not as muggy farther to the west. You get into the drier air, Del Rio, 59 degree dew point. 50 degrees Rock Springs, Junction 48, but then east of I-35. That's where you have the thickest humidity, as usual this time of day and even this time of year with the proximity to the Gulf coastline. But that drier air heats up more efficiently as well. So Junction's 101, Del Rio 102. Cotulla did make triple digits today, but now at 99 degrees, and Pleasanton 94. Elsewhere, just a few triple digit readings, but most of the state in the 90s. El Paso at only 90, Alpine 92, and you get to Dallas, it's near 100. So tomorrow we'll start the day at 75 degrees in the morning. So another typical start to the day. Basically this time of year, just plan on mid 70s every morning. The mornings don't change much. By the midday, noon hour, upper 80s, then 94 the high again, and there's that slight 10% chance tomorrow afternoon. Folks who work outdoors that have had a tough time getting projects done lately because of the rainy pattern, having better luck this week. You'll be able to get some work done, see some progress there. So tomorrow afternoon, I think still near 100 farther west of town, closer to the Rio Grande century mark, 100 to about 102 for a high. Up into the hill country, mid 90s, Fredericksburg and Kerrville 96, Von Army 96, Converse 95, Elmendorf 96, and Bernie a high tomorrow of 93. 10% chance tomorrow, 20% on Wednesday. Just a few little ripples in the upper level flow. Then the upper level high pressure system gets more centered overhead, and that's going to keep us sunny. Nothing but sunshine Thursday. Whoa. So there's a chair here, and I accidentally backed into. You'll have to excuse me. But anyway, watch out for chairs at home. It's quiet weather. All right.
I mean, every day you dodge it.
Well, I do, but
once in a while.
It moved.
Yeah.
In case you missed it, coming up next. You're all right, though, right? Here's today's In Case You Missed It.
Hi there, good morning. It is Monday. It is July 26th.
We are still working to learn the name of a 51-year-old man who died in a rollover crash last night. The crash caused by a driver who tried crossing several lanes of I-10. That driver hit barrels in front of the victim's Nissan. The victim then crashed into the truck, causing both vehicles to roll. Police say the victim was not wearing a seatbelt, was thrown from his vehicle. He died at the hospital.
In September of last year, John Schiller was caught on video fighting with the man he believed had stolen his ex-wife's phone.
The video shows Schiller point a gun at the victim and push him to the ground. The victim says he found that phone on the street and spoke with the woman about returning it. Schiller charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon.
A shooting involving 2 teenagers now being investigated. San Antonio police say a 15-year-old was shot in the chest last night outside of a home in the 1200 block of South Olive Street. Police are saying the victim and a 16-year-old suspect were apparently handling guns inside a car when one of those guns went off It hit the victim in the shoulder. The victim taken to the hospital and is expected to be okay.
The verdict was just read in this courtroom of guilty. We really saw no emotion for McCain for much of this trial. Oh, this is a live picture right there. You see McCain with an elbow to the bailiff.
Certainly things coming to a real climactic point here as, again, the jury found him guilty in the charge of capital murder for the shooting death of SAPD Detective Benjamin Marconi. A couple of baby giraffes are the talk of the town in Fort Worth. The pair are the newest additions to the Fort Worth Zoo and will live in the African savanna habitat. According to zoo officials there, the male calf was born July 1st at around 145 pounds and 6 feet tall.
10 days later, the female born weighing 132 pounds and a little over 5 feet tall. They took their first steps on Friday. On social media, the zoo posted that they don't have names yet. But stay tuned.
Oh, they're cute.
All right, this evening we'll be falling through the 80s. Tomorrow start at 75, make it to 94, off chance of a stray shower.
All right, thanks, Adam. Thanks for watching.
See you on the Night Beat.